is the right to tell what they do not want to hear. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Tired of the same repetitive government narratives? And wave goodbye to the distractions and rhetoric of corporate media. For this is Anti-Media Radio.
But I want to get the language right. The government is in trouble.
You're all a bunch of slaves! Bunch of slaves!
What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
What's your definition of me?
And now, here's your host, S.M. Gibson.
My name is S.M. Gibson, and this is Anti-Media Radio. We are your alternative to the corporate mainstream narrative, to the agenda being shoved down your throats every single day by the government, by the money. We're not in this for money. We're in this for information, for truth, and that's what we're here tonight to do. We have a very special guest tonight. Going to be coming on here in just a few minutes. Mr. John McAfee, the presidential candidate. Please stick around for that. It is September the 29th, 2015. As always, I want to run down a few statistics that the corporate media somehow seems to neglect in their 24-hour news cycle. We've seen 891 Americans killed by police so far this year. We have also seen 96 officers that have died in the line of duty. That includes 27 officers killed by gunfire, 26 officers that died from automobile accidents, 16 officers that have passed away from heart attacks. So 96, including heart attacks, including illness, whatever it was they passed away from in the line of duty, versus 891. Strict gun control laws. City of Chicago. The city of Chicago so far this year has seen 2,312 people shot since January 1st, 2015. They've also seen 395 homicides. And America's great ally, all of the great friends, they're going to head up the UN Security Council coming up. They're about to crucify a kid, but whatever. 132 executions, at least so far. The majority of those by beheading. Just this year alone, they're heading up the UN's, hey, that's human rights. Let's do this. Give me a break. As always, in the studio, Mr. Shannon Madden. Shannon, how you doing, sir?
Good evening, Mr. Gibson. How are you?
Oh, a lot going on in the world. Did you see where Mr. Edward Snowden, who I personally think is a hero, joined on Twitter today? What do you think about that?
Are you following yet?
Oh, of course.
Of course.
I was a little late to the game, maybe earlier than most, but I jumped on about 20,000 followers. That was about 20 minutes in to him having joined.
That's like 700,000.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And climbing quickly. That's incredible. Is that precedented?
Yeah, I know that the whole Caitlyn Jenner.
I mean, how many Twitter followers does Grumpy Cat have?
Yeah. But, it's exciting. What I think is funny is Mr. Pataki, who's running for president.
George.
He called out for Twitter to remove him and called him a traitor. I guess Mr. Pataki used his free speech to be upset about someone that used their free speech.
Well, thankfully, he doesn't have a real shot at becoming president of the United States anyway. But man, I hope that this guest we have tonight does. this is probably, I easily got to be one of the greatest guests we've ever had. Ever.
I mean,
this is incredible. I'm so stoked. This is awesome. John McAfee, if you don't know who this guy is, if you've ever had a computer at some point in time in your life, it was probably preloaded with McAfee Antivirus, a company that he hasn't even owned for 15 years. But that's the guy. He's the McAfee behind McAfee Antivirus.
He's running for president right now.
And so many other just incredible things. This guy's probably one of the most incredible men I've ever had the opportunity of getting a chance to talk to. It's going to be incredible. Great interview. And he is running for president. And after you hear this guy's story, and please go and do some additional research after you've heard this episode, and check into John McAfee. True, and don't believe everything you read, by the way. There's a lot of mud that's been slung over the years. He has a very colorful past, but when you live in large like this,
like the Bushes and the Clintons hadn't had a colorful past.
Oh no, there wasn't a trail of bodies that led Bill Clinton to the White House. Are you kidding me?
No, but I agree with you completely. I think our guest tonight is, I think he's worth listening to. I think he's definitely worth hearing out. He
has a real story, though. None of these other candidates,
they're all fake
candidates that have been propped up by their parties, are real people that have actually lived a life. I mean, we're talking about a man who came from very auspicious beginnings. And next thing you know, walked away from a $100 million paycheck for the company that he founded.
Well, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and it's everybody really loves Donald Trump because he's so real. Like, he's just so, this is what I think. People are sick of politicians, and they just love Trump because he's just he says what he thinks. If you want to talk about somebody that's real and gets down to the brass tacks of what's really going on, it's worth at least checking out what McAfee has to say.
Yeah, versus these, again, I can't stress this enough. I mean, the people that they propped up there, that the parties have shoved down the American people's throats, these are the candidates. These are the game show contestants for President of the United States.
That's what it is.
And they've totally, completely blocked out the fact that there are, how many people are running for president now that are actually officially registered for
president? Well, Walker's out. Rick Perry, God bless it.
Walker was out when he got started.
I tell you what, I won't get into this too deep, but I've been putting together some info for a story that will come out in the future about Mr. Marco Rubio. Everybody knows that. If you listen to the show, we kind of have this theory that Rubio is going to get pushed through as the candidate because he's young. He's fast-talking politician. He doesn't have the last name of Bush, but he presents himself like he's kind of a, I don't want to say libertarian, but he's more modern and on the cusp of things. But in reality, when you look at his voting record and you look at everything he's done, he is a Bush, like he literally is. And just his slogan, talking about a new America. There was a project for a new American century, or whatever it is. New American Century is his slogan, and the Project for a New American Century was started in 1997, and it's something that Dick Cheney was a part of, Wolfowitz was a part of, Rumsfeld was a part of, Jeb Bush was a part of, the first 25 signers of their original statement, and it was a think tank, and it was all neocons, again, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Bush, Wolfowitz, and they were saying, basically we need to go run the world because that's what we do, in no uncertain terms. And Marco Rubio has patterned himself after these people. Cheney's come out and talked about he loves Rubio. He's so aligned with the Bushes through Florida. It's ridiculous. And how nobody sees this, it just makes me sick. And, like you said about Walker, there's so many candidates that are considered jokes. And it's like, you can sit here and say, well, this is wrong and this is wrong about what they say, but, they're not real candidates. The fear about Rubio is that he will be pushed through as a real candidate eventually. And that's why I feel that there is reason to put the stuff out there about him. Take that for what you will. Maybe he will dissipate. Maybe he will go away like the rest of them. Maybe we'll see a a Hillary Trump or something like
Well,
that.
and even more so, a reason for us to talk about people like John McAfee, real Americans who have been through all sorts of crazy situations, and
Not a career politician.
and not a career politician at all, but somebody who understands how ludicrous this system has become.
And it's something too that people talk about Trump, and I think, look, Carson's at the top of the polls, Fiorina's risen in the polls, and we're talking about three people right now that are ahead of all the GOP candidates, and none of the three are career politicians. So somebody like John McAfee, I feel, definitely, has a place to come in and really make a name for himself. It has to do with the political system. Obviously, it's taken since 2015, but it definitely appears that people are sick of the political system.
Well, and again, why Trump is doing so well in the polls.
It is,
right
but
now.
Fiorina, Ben Carson, we see it all
Bernie
across the board.
Sanders, come on now.
But Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders has been around. People have built this illusion in their head like he hasn't. He's talking like he's from the outside. But, we see kind of the scuffle him and Ron Paul got into a few years ago over the Fed, and Bernie kind of sold that, out a little bit. But, people are looking for an answer. And we say it all the time here on the show. Is there really a politician that's going to come through and save the country? Or a leader?
The country does need saving, and it needs saving from the outside. Picking yet another career politician who's bought and sold by corporate interests is not the answer.
But at the same time, I don't feel like that's going to be the answer at all. I think it comes from within us. Okay, as promised, we are now going to bring on the man, the myth, and the now presidential candidate who is running as the Cyber Party's candidate. He is the real-life most interesting man in the world, and a man that should need zero introduction, Mr. John McAfee. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Well, I'm doing fine, thank you, sir. Sorry I'm a minute late.
Oh, no problem. Okay, so I guess we'll start off here. For those who do not know, you are running for president of the United States. I will say this. You have a very fascinating past. For anybody that wants to know about that, I highly encourage you to go look it up. But, that's been spoken about a lot. Tonight, I really want to focus on the future and what you plan to do as president of the United States. What was your final straw? Like, what made you say, okay, I've had enough of this. I'm running for president?
Well, quite frankly, I would much rather go fishing than run for president. But my advisors and my friends and particularly my fans finally threatened to break my kneecaps if I didn't do it. So here's the issue. They've been urging me to run for about a year. And I finally looked at the field of candidates and realized that we don't have anybody running that's qualified to fix the problems of this country. I mean, we live in an insane government. This is the absolute truth. If you look at the simplest things, like the TSA, they tell us that they're there to protect us. Yet, when I'm standing in line with my belt and my shoes off, and they're scrutinizing my belongings, and my hands are in the air, and they're frisking me, I don't feel protected. I feel like the enemy. And sometimes if you feel like the enemy, maybe to the government you are the enemy. Another example, the NSA or the CIA want us to open up our lives, all of us, so that they can scrutinize our smallest thoughts and moves and actions. And they tell us that they're doing this so that they can assure us that we are not the enemy they're trying to protect us from. This is the absolute facts of things. They word it differently, but this is what's actually happening. We live in a government that has no technological competence. They are illiterate in cybersecurity, for example. And yet we're in an age where the next war will be a cyber war. We are dysfunctional. The government is $19 trillion in debt. It doesn't have any money. When you're in debt, or if you have no money, if you have $0 in the bank, you have $0 in your pockets, and a friend says, loan me $20, you can't do it. When another government comes, or a country comes to the U.S. government and says, we need money, help us, the U.S. government prints money out of nothing. In real life, we can't do it. The government is living a fantasy. It's a dream. So it's a dysfunctional government from every standpoint. It's paranoid. It's afraid of its own citizens. It's incompetent, and living in a fantasy world. And so this has to change. And I don't see anybody in the lineup of candidates that has the understanding, the qualifications, or the nerve to make the changes necessary.
So obviously, you're not a fan of the two-party system because you chose to run outside of it. Why?
Yes.
Why did you choose to run outside the system? Like, basically saying you understand that the two-party system is a corporatocracy. What is?
Well,
go ahead.
Here's the thing with the two-party system: the parties are machines. They've had over 100 years of stagnation. And if you become a representative of the party, you simply become a part of the machine. You become a cog in that big wheel. The machine has no heart. It has no soul. It is a mechanical gadget designed to self-perpetrate itself. We need to get back to a government with heart. Our government was founded on the principle that the government is a service to the people. Now it's become a seat of power. People want to become congressmen and senators and the president because it's a seat of power. They hunger for power. It used to be George Washington, for example. He kicked and screamed about. He didn't want to be president. He was a retired general and wanted to retire to his farm and hunt and fish. But he was forced into it by his compatriots because he really was the man best suited for the job. He didn't want it because there was no power there. It was all service. You had to serve the people. That changed. When's the last time you felt served by your government? That you looked at your government and says, "Oh gosh, you've done such incredible things for me." I can't remember it.
I can't.
Maybe I'm older than you. I'm 70, and I lived through the 50s, and that was the age of Dwight Eisenhower. Now, he was not the greatest president. There's no doubt about it. Neither was he the smartest. But he was the last president who did not want to be president. He also had to be pushed into the position, kicking and screaming. So he did his job as best he saw fit, which was he tried to serve the country. He didn't grasp for power. I mean, consider this. He was a general that had nuclear bombs and battleships and aircraft carriers at his command. And do you think he felt more powerful sitting behind that desk? No. He didn't want the job, but he accepted it, and he tried to serve his country. The last president to ever do so. So, and that was a time, by the way, of the American dream. All things were possible. Everything was magical. You could dream and hope, and it might actually come true. And our country has gone downhill since. I'd like to return it to that age where everything is possible, and the government serves you, and life is sweet. We've lost that.
Amen to that. So I think we're kind of both on the same page here that at this point, in 2015, it does appear that the government has declared that ordinary citizens are the enemy. And, why do you think it's still effective to run for office, considering that it is all these entities controlling things? Like, do you think it is actually effective to run for president, given all the hurdles that you have in front of you?
Yeah, I do. I think that the time is right. The two-party system cannot go on forever. It cannot. And right now we have the technology. We have the capabilities to actually make a third-party success. For example, in the Cyber Party, we had developed software. We're going to implement it in November that will allow me to do fireside chats to the entire American public. They just download an app, and suddenly I'm in your living room once a week. You can watch me. You can see me. You can hear me talk. Likewise, you can type questions or suggestions. And we have software that will parse all of this. Parsing is a technical term of software that understands the meaning of what you're typing. So if someone asks if 10,000 people ask the same question in 10,000 different ways, our software will be able to to put it all together and say, all these 10,000 questions are really the same question, and here it is. And so I'll be able to answer those questions, talking directly to the people. That's never been done before. And I think that that's going to change the landscape of the campaign. Rather than two candidates debating each other, why would I want to debate Donald Trump, for example? He's not going to vote for me no matter what I say. Why would I waste my breath? I'd rather debate the American people, talk to them, listen to them, find out what their feelings are. What do they want? What are your problems? And then try to solve those jointly as a group, as a collective nation. That's never been done. And I truly believe that will change the landscape of politics, the landscape of elections, and the entire American system.
So you have no interest in getting into the debates, and when they come around with the two-party, like that doesn't interest you at all.
Well, I mean, I won't shy away from it. But what a waste of time. Because why are we doing such nonsense? We are all fighting one another. The Democrats fight the Republicans. Republicans fight the Democrats. They sling mud at each other. My God, aren't we all Americans? Aren't we trying to serve this country? What good is all that fighting and arguing and comparing and doing? No. Put yourself out there and let the people vote. You don't have to put down your candidates. You don't have to prove that you're smarter than them or you're slicker or you're more eloquent. I mean, the voters are smart enough to figure that out without a debate. The debate has become a spectacle, a way for television to make money, and a way for candidates to strut. Well, I'm not interested in strutting. I'm not interested in power. If you want to be in government in order to have power, you should not be in government. You should be doing something else. So, Donald Trump should go back to being an entrepreneur and building businesses. He can have all the power he wants there. I mean, that's appropriate.
That's refreshing. I mean, I can't think of the last time I heard a candidate say they actually wanted to serve the people other than serve their own ego. So that being said, if there was a President McAfee tomorrow, what would your first act as president be?
Well, there'd be a whole bunch of things. I would disband a number of government agencies, the TSA being one of them. It is proven to be completely ineffective, and it's 50,000 employees. Let's assume we did the following. We sent all the employees home, but we continued to pay their salary. Their salary is less than $2 billion a year, but the budget is $8 billion. We saved $6 billion right off the bat. No, I'm serious. I would.
No, that's great. That's great.
That is incredible.
No, seriously. So why put 50,000 people on the unemployment rolls? Continue to pay their salary. We'll figure out what to do with them later. But right now, we're saving $6 billion a year by sending them home and let them fish. Okay. The same thing with the DIA, the Department of Indian Affairs. There is no more hated agency by the Native Americans. You send those people home. That's 8,000 people. Their salary is less than $500 million a year, but their budget is $2.9 billion. Well, we've saved almost $2 billion there. So now we're already $8 billion ahead. We continue to pay everybody's salary, but we've saved the money. I mean, why not think creatively? Well, let's do things like this. I would pardon everybody in prison for smoking marijuana. There are people in prison for 15 years for smoking a joint. Come on. We have people that are involved in human trafficking who get probation, who are murderers who get 2 years. Send them home. We need that jail space for more interesting criminals. I would reduce the penalties for all drug possession. I mean, if you are a heroin addict, the addiction is its own punishment. We do not need to punish you further. This is the facts of life. I'm sorry. What interest is it of the government to interfere between a person and what they intend to apply to their body or ingest? So I would end that. I would end the war on drugs. Well, the war on drugs has created all of the criminal cartels that have murdered hundreds of thousands of people. With decriminalization, the cartels disappear. There's no more need for the cartels because it's all legal. I would reduce the policing of the world. We are not the policemen of the world. The world doesn't need us to police it. Terrorism is a direct result of our interference in the affairs of other nations. Had we not interfered, there would not be such a thing as terrorism. So there are a number of things that I would do, and people may or may not agree with any of this, but that's why I will be addressing the American people once a week. You can say, well, I think that's bullshit, and I'll go, cool. Explain to me why, and I'll tell you my attitudes, and we'll work it out together. But this is a platform I'm starting with. It's a place we can all at least stand on and say, I like it or I don't, and change it appropriately so that the American citizenry is actually represented by the acts that I intend to do as president.
Wow, the platform of freedom. Like, who would have ever thought that one for the United States?
Concept.
Yeah, it really is. I tell you what, big news today. I'm sure you saw it come across. And speaking of pardoning people, Edward Snowden joined Twitter today. So my question to you is, would you pardon Edward Snowden on day one?
Of course I would. Of course I would pardon Edward Snowden. Listen, this is not a matter of right or wrong or being a traitor or a patriot. The man told us what we needed to know.
Yep.
Are you not glad that he told you what he knew? Weren't you shocked? Weren't you, if he hadn't said something, we would still be in ignorance, and the NSA would still be up our butts with a telescope. So, no, thank God he said something. So, because he said something, a pardon is in order.
And I don't want to get into the whole, talking about other candidates, but Pataki came out and made some tweet today saying that Twitter should revoke Snowden's account and called Snowden a traitor. I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, what you think somebody that's running for president is a public servant calling someone that told the American people the truth, something that they did need to know clearly. And then this man's coming out and saying Twitter should revoke his account. It's like he's using free speech to go off on somebody that exercised free speech.
Well, again, everybody, this is America, and we are all entitled to an opinion and a position. I just gave you mine, okay? And people can disagree with that, and I can disagree with them. For me, if Edward Snowden had not told us what he told us, good Lord, who knows where we would be right now? Seriously. The spying would have continued and become worse, and we may be a police state, may have been a police state by now. Oh, no. He told us the truth. He told us what we needed to know. And if someone does you a service, then we have an obligation to do that person a service, not an obligation to jail him or beat him or call him names. No, we have an obligation to thank him. Thank you, sir. It's not a matter of morality. It's not a matter of right or wrong. It's a matter of what did we need. We needed to know, and he told us.
Amen to that. And I assume you think the same for Chelsea Manning as well.
We are so judgmental as a tribe of people, Americans. We are. And we are so led by the rhetoric of our leaders. And we're fearful. When at 9/11, when the president came out and said, we're going to institute Homeland Security and all these measures to keep you safe. Well, we fell into that because we were afraid. Yes, thank you, keep us safe. Well, no, you can't provide safety for someone else. The government cannot. The police can't. If a burglar is in your bedroom with a gun to your head, is there a magic button that you can push that will make a policeman materialize between you and the burglar? No, I'm sorry. The police come in after the fact and try to justify it and arrest the person who did the crime. They're not there to protect. They're there to, after the fact, go and collect people and put them in jail. So it's all an illusion, this thing about security. So we fall so easily into the urgings of our politicians. So all of these people, Manning and Snowden, come on. Anybody who helps us has to be an ally and has to be protected and honored.
Amen to that. I tell you what, you brought up 9/11. I don't want to get too deep into this, but the 28 pages that are sitting with Congress right now that supposedly, it's all allegedly, that it points back to Saudi Arabia. I don't know how well versed you are about the, infamous 28 pages, but what would you do about that situation with 9/11? Would you pursue that any other investigation further as far as that goes? No, absolutely not. It happened 15 years ago. Of what purpose would it serve? So that we could blame someone? No, I'm sick of blame. We want to blame everybody but ourselves for our problems. But we're all responsible. Why? We elected the idiots that are running the country.
willingly. No one put a gun to our head and said, vote this. No, we did it. We're as much to blame for everything that has happened here in America as anybody else. So we need to take responsibility and stop pointing fingers. I wouldn't open any investigation because what would the end result be? Right. We would get to point fingers at somebody. No, get real. We need to get real. We are $19 trillion in debt. We're printing money that we don't have. I mean, it's insane. We don't have the time, the energy to do the expense, and for what? Let's look at now. Now we're in a mess. Doesn't matter how we got here. It doesn't matter who put us here. We're here. We got to fix this mess. We have an insane government that's turned paranoid, to which we appear to be the enemies. That's got to change. And so let's look at now and the future, and let's forget about the past.
Amen. So you mentioned the NSA and the DIA earlier, and we're clearly broke as a country. I mean, there's no question about that. Anybody that disputes that is paying zero attention to anything. What other departments would you shut down? I know Rand Paul has come out and talked about shutting down the IRS. Rick Perry has. Well,
it's not a matter of shutting. I think I would absolutely terminate I would shut down the DIA and the TSA without question. They are legacy of agencies that are no longer serving a purpose. The FDA, I would cut back tremendously. Of what purpose is an agency that says, if you are terminally ill, and let's say I only have a year to live, and there's a drug that might help me, but it also might hurt you, so we're not going to let you have it, what insanity is that? Seriously. And it takes 10 to 15 years for a new drug to get approved. Come on. We have sick and dying people in this country who need help. And sure, maybe a drug might hurt someone, but look at the possible benefits. We have to be more sane. We have to be more rational and practical. And the FDA needs to be cut back tremendously. Tremendously. I mean, we are adults here in America. We are able to weigh the risks and the alternatives of any action. We don't need a parent. We don't need a father or a mother. I don't. I'm 70 years old, and you sound like you're over 21. So do you need a government to tell you what to do? To say what's right and what's wrong? To say we're here to protect you from yourself? No. I don't need protection from myself. I need protection from you, from the government.
And we've gotten to a situation here where it's not only is the government behaving like they're your father or your mother, but they've almost become like they're playing God in these situations, especially when we're talking about the FDA and talking about, what they can regulate and what you're allowed to do. What do you feel? It's another huge topic in the news right now, and cutting back stuff, the whole Planned Parenthood debate. Where do you weigh in on that?
On which one? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
The Planned Parenthood debate. Do you fund it? Do you not fund it? What do you think about that?
I think we fund as little as possible. Here's the other thing. The government is not here to fund and to support. Again, we are adults. And not only are we responsible for our own actions, but we should be responsible for our own welfare. We should be able to find a way to work, to make money, to support our wives and our loved ones. For a healthy adult, nothing should be done by the government. And we have industries, we have entrepreneurs. The entire concept of funding what and why, and what is the end product of that funding? Let us take care of ourselves for a while and see what happens. If we can't, then let's try and do something. But let's make it, first of all, a little easier to start businesses, to run businesses, not to have, thousands of pages of paperwork that we have to fill out every year, not to have burdensome taxes, not to have some oversight where someone comes in and says you're not clean enough, or you're not this enough, or you're in violation of subsection C, paragraph 3. No, come on, we need less of that. We need less regulation. We need less funding. We need to free America so that people can do freely.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, this idea of just more freedom, I mean, that's mind-blowing that somebody in 2015 that wants to represent, the freest country in the world wants to, promote freedom. Like
instead of assuming the throne of power.
Yeah. And that's what we're dealing with.
A public servant. That's amazing.
And this is something that the government's very involved in, as well as the banks, and there's a lot of, complications with this. What do you feel about, the invisible taxation that is inflation? And how do you think we deal with inflation in this country? Because there's so many people, I think, that talk about, well, the minimum wage, the minimum wage, the minimum wage. But really, the minimum wage is just, a result of inflation, and nobody ever wants to address that. How do you think?
Here's the issue: inflation. I mean, this is the simplest of all equations. I'm a math major and a statistician and a programmer. Inflation is caused by one thing and one thing only: the government printing money. Because when the government has no money and it wants to do something and prints money, where does that money come from? It's stealing it from you by devaluing your hard-earned dollar, by taking from the sweat and the labor that you have put into this economy. So every dollar that they print devalues us. Every million devalues us more. So that's where inflation comes from. If we stopped just printing money and realize that we have to live in a budget just like everybody. The government is not immune to reality. You can't print money when you're broke. I can't. Wouldn't it be great? I call my wife and go, let's go to dinner. We have no money. Well, print some. I'll be right there.
I can, but I'll go to jail.
Okay, well, but that would cause inflation. If you're in fact we're counterfeiting money, that would cause inflation, okay? Inflation is nothing more than the oversupply of money. Where does oversupply come from? I mean, we should have a static supply of money. It comes from the government printing more. We'll just make more and don't worry about it. If we run out of that, we'll just print more. So if we stop doing that, there wouldn't be inflation. This is a simple formula. They want you to think it's complicated. No, that complication is to hide the fact that they're doing it purposely.
I think you absolutely nailed it. So basically, you're talking about cutting, spending on all fronts. Of course, I'm sure you do away with Obamacare and that whole situation. As far as troops overseas, we're spending money. Would you bring all the troops home?
Am I going to what now?
Would you bring all the troops home? Would you stop all foreign aid to all countries? Because clearly we are broke.
Well, okay. It's not a matter of would I. How can you give aid that you do not have? Again, it's a simple formula. You don't have the money. How can you give it?
Right.
The only way to do foreign aid is to steal from you again.
Right. So would you
by creating more money? So if I aid another country, I can only do that by devaluing your work, by stealing from you, the American public. Well, good God, I don't want a government that steals from me. I don't. There are enough thieves in the world. A foolish man can lose his wallet anywhere. We don't need the government doing it too. So, no, of course we can't do foreign aid if we don't have it. I mean, and why should they expect it? Why should a foreign government expect aid from a bankrupt country? They should be aiding us. In fact, if someone asked us for money, I'd say, oh, wait a minute, we don't have it. Well, I think you do. Why don't you lend us $100 billion?
Amen. So all our troops that are stationed around the world, would you bring all the troops back home?
Well, that's a difficult question. And I can't answer that until I sat down in the chair, to be honest with you, because I don't really know what the troops are doing. I don't have a clue. I would certainly bring home as many as I could. I would stop interfering with the internal affairs of countries because we have problems here. Let's fix ours before we think we can fix somebody else's. A sick man cannot heal somebody else. You got to heal yourself first. So I don't know about bringing all the troops home. That's a question I wish I could answer for you, but I just need more information. Here's what candidates do. They'll say, "Oh yes," or without thinking it through. You need more information. I would need more information. Do you realize that 99% of everything that happens in government happens behind closed doors, and behind that curtain, we only get to see 1%. So I would have to sit down in a chair and say, okay, now show me the nightmare, the real nightmare, and then I could make a decision.
Okay, so another huge topic on everybody's mind, immigration. I know you've spent some time outside the country. How do you feel about the whole immigration system? I know you were born in England. Your father was in the military, so you are a U.S. citizen. But as far as immigration, they push fear down everybody's throat. Oh, there's somebody coming from across the border. They're going to take your job, or they're going to rape your children, or whatever they say.
Okay, well, here's the issue. I am an immigrant. Okay, I was born in England, And our country was founded on the principle: give us your poor, the bottom of the people, your unwanted, and we managed to make it work. Have you traveled out west at all? Do you know how large this country is?
It's huge.
I mean, once you pass the Mississippi River going west, we are nothing but a vast resource of empty land. You think we can't fit people there? You think that somehow we have overpopulated this massive, beautiful, unimaginably beautiful chunk of the world? The Grand Canyon, the Rocky Mountains, the sand dunes of the desert, the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean.
Basically, what you're talking about is what used to be Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the issue. The problem with immigration is we're trying to make it an illegal thing. Why don't we open our borders and document everybody? And why don't we, and all the money that we spend patrolling the borders, why don't we create schools for immigrants so at least they learn English and maybe a trade? And then let's put them to work somehow, because we need workers in this country. We do. We need entrepreneurs. The reason that the jobs are so scarce is because we make it so difficult to create jobs. It's easy to create a job if the government would stop interfering. Everybody with a bright idea and some energy will create a job, I promise you. But try it in this country with all of the barriers, the taxes, the paperwork, everything that you have to jump through. It's hard. If we stop doing that and freed up the country for entrepreneurs and businessmen, trust me, every immigrant will have a job.
So, for people that don't know, you've created a lot of jobs throughout the years. You're an innovator. You were definitely not a politician by trade, and you've actually given back to the economy. So do you really think the easiest way to create jobs in America, like simply if you're in politics, is just, hey, government, get out of the way and let entrepreneurs do their thing?
Well, the government has to get out of the way. The government is incompetent. It is incompetent to regulate the things it's trying to regulate. For example, business, which operates in the world of reality, okay? In the world of reality, where if you don't have the money, you can't spend it. If you don't have money in the bank, you can't pay the payroll. And if you can't pay the payroll, your workers aren't going to work for you. How can a government which has the ability to live in a world of fantasy by printing money and creating unreal situations, how can they possibly help or control the real world? No, I mean, it's reversed. There's something wrong with that picture. So we have to free up everything. People. We need the freedom to be able to travel freely without being frisked and treated like the enemy. Businesses, we have to have the ability to start and operate and run businesses without government interference. That's what's wrong with this country. Government has overreached itself to get into every aspect of our lives where it does not belong. It's here to serve. It's here to serve, not to control, not to manage, and not to be mother or father to. And now it tries to be all three of those. It's got to get out of the way. It's got to get out of the way and let us do our thing as American people. We're not stupid. We aren't. We aren't. We're about the brightest people in the world, with the exception of we elect idiots for leaders. Why we do that is I have no clue.
The propaganda machine is strong in this country, unfortunately, I think. Maybe.
Well, in any case, that's where I stand. And unfortunately, I'm running a little out of time here. So, do you have another couple of questions that are really important?
Yeah, I tell you what, real quick, because you're obviously about the federal government getting out of the way. With the problems of police brutality we've seen in the country, you're definitely in favor of the federal government stepping out of the way. How do you feel like, as president, would you address the situations with police? Whatever the situations may be, I know they vary. Sometimes they're doing their job. Sometimes it's somebody being shot. How do you feel like the federal government should address those situations?
Okay, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Like the Black Lives Matter situation.
Do you realize these are all political slogans more than any reality?
Yep.
Obviously, Black Lives Matter. My wife is black.
Right.
But to ask me that question is an oxymoron. But we all know that lives matter. Life is a very precious thing. But you're asking what the government is going to do about loss of life.
Right.
About loss of life. Here is the issue. I think that most of the problems of the world, and here in America, would not be problems if the government would just get the heck out of the way. People, it is so hard to make a living, to keep up with the inflation because our government is living in a dream world and printing money, that there is anger, there is frustration, there's a sense of loss, there's a sense of helplessness and hopelessness. Well, in that environment, all kinds of shit is going to come down. I'm sorry, but it is. If we get rid of the things which create the hopelessness, maybe the results would also disappear. Let's try it and see.
Absolutely brilliant. And I'll leave you with one more question, and we will let you go. Kind of a silly question. All the other candidates were asked this: Secret Service name. If you had a Secret Service name, what would it be, and why? And then we'll let you go.
If I had a what now?
Your Secret Service name. All the GOP candidates were asked that. It kind of went viral. What would your Secret Service name be? If you
my Secret Service name?
Right.
I haven't thought of it, and honestly, quite frankly, it does not matter.
Fair enough.
Sorry. I'm sorry I can't answer that for you, okay?
And that's awesome. That's the best answer
that really
candidate's given
because
yet.
he's actually worried about freedom as opposed to some PR answer. Well, thank you so much, Mr. McAfee. I encourage everybody out there to go out there and research your platform even more. Freedom. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that was the way to go?
All right. Thank you very much for having me on, sir.
Thank you, sir. So,
incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible interview. Fantastic interview.
So, Shannon, what are your thoughts? What do you take away from all that?
Where do I sign up? I have yet to hear a candidate speak in such open terms as that. We've heard, bits and pieces of it and shades of it from other candidates in the past, but that's keeping it real as you can get. Yeah, absolutely. And, he's, we talked about it at the beginning of the show a little bit. This is somebody that's lived life, that's seen how the world works. And this is somebody that wasn't handed $200 million by their daddy, to go out and open a business like Donald Trump. This is somebody that earned their money, that is an innovator, that is a creator. And, somebody that sees legitimately how the business world works. A living embodiment of the American dream.
That's it.
Incredible.
It really is. I'm just kind of blown away by the whole interview. And again, I really encourage people to research that. I know there's an uphill battle when you are fighting against the two-party system. That's something that definitely has to be dealt with in this country. But I think that this is somebody, as long as he gets his message out, that he is a viable alternative to the two-party system. I think most Americans are tired of that. Not only do I think, it's reflecting in the polls right now. People are sick of the politicians. They want an alternative, but I believe that people, this fear is shoved down their throat, and they're so scared to, they don't want to rock the horse too much. And, but we have to have a Republican. We have to have a Democrat. That's what they've grown up with. That's all they've seen. But we're talking about electing an American to be the president of the United States. There's nothing that says it has to be a Republican. There's nothing that says it has to be a Democrat. There's nothing that says, they have to have, been a politician in the past. We're clearly seeing that right now. People are so sick of the Bushes, the Clintons, that the whole environment of Washington, D.C., and people are yearning for something. And I think they're putting...
What's the reason that Trump is doing so well in the polls
That's
right
it.
now? But unfortunately, Trump is definitely not the answer. Trump is more of the problem. And again...
And by Trump's own admission, he's bought politicians through the years.
Yeah.
If he's been buying politicians and he's been the guy pulling the strings, well, look where we're at. That's what your string pulling got us?
Ted Cruz wants some of that money.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, speaking of money,
well, speaking of money, I've got to go back to what Mr. McAfee said. Particularly about just the United States government openly printing money, and that is the direct result. Our inflation that we're going through right now is the direct result of that, and why the average American hasn't, awakened to that fact. It just blows me away. It really does. And again, we need more candidates. Those are the issues that more candidates need to be focusing on.
That's it.
Instead of more wars, more bombs, more guns, a wall up between the United States and Mexico, etc.
Well,
hateful rhetoric.
And it was the thing he kept coming back to over and over and over is the government's the problem. The government is interfering with people's lives. The government is in people's business, and they need to get out of the way. And I think I really believe that's something internal that all Americans believe, and they have these different outlets based on social beliefs of which candidate they pick. But I think really all anybody wants is for the government to get out of the way and be allowed to be free, prosperous human beings and live their life.
Well, and that's why voter apathy is where it's at right now, and why we have a vast majority of the American voting population is simply not going to vote.
But you also have some, look at a candidate like Bernie Sanders. I think a lot of his supporters are people that are young. They're people that are tired of the system. They're people they're tired of the government, and yet at the same time they're going to a candidate that is advocating for more government. And I think a lot of that.
Well, just like and we pointed this out on last week about the fact that that the change that Obama brought. You see where that's gotten us.
Right.
The Freedom Act.
It hasn't. I think a lot of it though is people. It's based on fear, and people they want to be free, but at the same time they're scared. They're terrified to be free because of the responsibility that comes with freedom. And I think for a lot of people, it's easier for the government and Big Brother to take care of you. They shove that down our throats constantly, that we have to protect you. The terrorists are coming to get you. And the solutions, with basically everything, Mr. McAfee was sitting here talking about, let's look forward. Let's not talk about researching this or doing this. We have to move forward. We're broke today. We have to stop living in the past. Everybody's trying to do this in the past or that in the past. We need to focus on what's going on right now. And we need to build and expound upon that. And you don't really hear any candidate saying, let's look towards a brighter future. Let's look towards a future with more freedom. You get it a little bit with Rand Paul in areas, but you really don't get a lot of it. I tell you what, though, for anybody that is wanting to know more about John McAfee and his campaign, please go visit www.mcafee16.com. His entire platform is there. He's running as a candidate for the Cyber Party. And I know another thing that I've heard him discuss, wasn't on this show so much tonight, is China and how we are engaged in a war in China through cyber. And it's not anything that's been declared. But, Donald Trump is somebody who, has self-promoted that he's never sent an email in his life. And this is a guy that we're expecting to...
We live in 2015.
Right. And he's supposed to deal with China, and he's always on about China. Well, how is he going to deal with the cyber warfare? He's never even sent an email. And we have a guy running over here that's developed all these technologies.
He's an innovator.
Mm-hmm. McAfee virus software. Where do you think that came from? So when we're talking about especially the whole cyber end of things, that's definitely his biggest platform, and that is where we're at in 2015. How do we deal with the shortcomings of the cyber warfare? That's what we're dealing with. I mean, Snowden uses the pawn, but again, that's cyber warfare against us as a people.
I mean, Hillary can't use the internet. I mean, she can't even save her emails.
Yeah.
So, there's that.
So we have to look at where we're at. It's 2015. If we have to realize what the technology has become. And if we want somebody to head the government, be the commander-in-chief, they need to understand the real warfare that's going on. And it's not these, Cobra Commander-looking people over in Iraq and Syria. These, farcical ninjas coming to get you.
Or basically your antagonist from American Sniper, basically.
That's it, and that's so much of that is used for division. Well, this person's... It's funny, I had this thought earlier this week. So many people talk about, well, the Muslims are coming to get us, or this person's brown, and we're all against all this situation. But look at Saudi Arabia. They're Muslim, they're brown. It's all these things we're told to fear, with, the rhetoric to keep you divided. And yet, Saudi Arabia gets free pass whatever it wants. So obviously, when we're talking about the people that are actually pulling the strings, those things that they use to keep you divided are actually not an issue at all. And once you see that wait, maybe that these things aren't actually anything to divide us whatsoever. We're all human beings, and, those people connect on money. We should be connecting with each other. Because until we connect with each other, and until we allow ourselves to be free, until we get over the divisions that are just rammed down our throats, then nothing's going to be solved. And that's what the political system does. It creates division internally among Americans, because there's somebody over here that's like, well, I'm for Bernie Sanders, and this person's for Hillary, and this person's for Rand Paul, or Ted Cruz, or Donald Trump, or, Lindsey Graham. There's probably like two of those people, but that, people get so up in arms about my candidate this, my candidate that, and there's so much emotion behind their whole belief system, but you don't believe exactly the way I do. You don't want my candidate, and they get offended. And that's more division that's created. We have to realize we need a candidate. We need somebody in this country that's willing to put the people first. That's not there running to cause division. That's not there to say this person's this or that person's that. That's just saying we're all one. And we all need to try to move forward together. And, I think that's something that Mr. McAfee relayed, at least to me tonight.
Just an incredible interview. Again, you juxtapose the conversation we just had with him versus the conversation that has been broadcast with Donald Trump, with Hillary Clinton, with going down the list of the Republican candidates, with Bernie Sanders, so on and so forth. And, why nobody has zeroed in on the fact of what has created the inflation that we're living in right now. The fact that, entities like the TSA and the NSA are completely non-effectual. They really are. How much terrorism has the TSA actually, how many terrorists have they stopped?
Right, they haven't stopped any.
Yeah.
They've been caught stealing from American citizens. They've been caught, groping kids, in strollers, the elderly in wheelchairs. We've caught them violating our rights time and time and time again.
Yeah.
Harassing everybody. And yet, they haven't stopped terrorism. Because it's another thing that's used as a fear tactic. It's another thing that's used to expand government, because the bigger the government is, the more they have a control in your everyday life. But I tell you what, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Nick will be here tomorrow, same anti-media time, and we'll be back on Thursday. I am your host, S.M. Gibson. Anti-media, out.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.